often when we're intimidated or scared, or we think there's going to be something scary, we do what? We run away. We do the fight or flight thing, right? And then if it's a neighborhood or a community that we think, man, that's not a great place to go, we actually often start pointing fingers like, oh, I'm not going there. I would never go there. And what if, though, that inclination to run away was wrong? What if we should change that inclination to moving in and building relationship in that community? Well, Amy Hope Dealer Williams did exactly that. There's a community in Chicago that has a bunch of gang activity, and she decided rather than running away and driving around that community, she's going to move into the community. And she's built relationships with gang affiliated youth, and hope is rising in that community because one person decided, I'm not going to run away. I'm not going to avoid it. I'm going to step in and show the love of Jesus. So sit down and enjoy this episode of the Live Faith First podcast. Gangs have been a challenge in cities, big and small, for generations. They've led to all kinds of government programs, crackdowns, task forces, and kind of average citizens, they want to avoid those neighborhoods where they think gangs might exist. Now, that's one approach to it, but our guest today, Amy Williams, decided rather than driving around the neighborhood, she's going to move in, and she got the nickname of Hope Dealer. Like if you have that, you better be bringing some hope if they are going to give you that nickname. So Amy, thank you for joining the Live Faith First podcast.
Oh, what a great introduction. I want to hear what's going to happen.
We're going to find out. We will see how it goes.
Yes.
It's a Friday afternoon that we're recording this. So
yes, excited to be
here. The best of us
here.
is still ahead. So yes, I'm so happy. I loved reading your story. But before we get into that, would you just give us kind of the cliff notes of your life? Give us your background. Where were you born? Where were you raised? How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah. And so my name is Amy Williams. Again, they call me the Hope Dealer to the Dope Dealer. Born and raised in Maine. I am biracial. So my dad was at the military base and my mom born and raised in Maine. A completely different culture than what you expect. It was in the 70s growing up. Being biracial, people used to ask my mom if she was babysitting. Her mom disowned her for marrying a black man. Like there was just a lot. But my mom and dad did not let that be a part of what we saw growing up. Mm-hmm. We saw the best in people. But after a while, moved to North Carolina. And that was a culture shock, right? Totally different culture. More African-American people than I've ever seen in my life. And had to navigate that space, but was in North Carolina for a long time, started working with Young Life for a little bit, doing ministry with young people on the margins, and just through a series of events, ended up in Chicago. I was done with youth ministry, wanted nothing to do with youth ministry, and God just laughed. He was like, okay, I'll give you a minute to breathe and get settled in, but then we're going full force. And here I am 30 years later, still working with young people in gangs and those in the criminal justice system. And I can't imagine doing anything else.
Yeah. That is amazing. Just quickly, tell me about the culture shock of going from reading in your book, like 99% white Maine to North Carolina. So I grew up in California, actually still live in California. Okay. Spent a summer in Charlotte and loved it. But again, it was that same, I'm coming from a very mono community and not moving in, but just being there. And we were living in dorms on I think historically black college. I actually don't know the name of the college now, but that was 40 years ago, 30 years ago. Right. I don't remember. I just know that it was brick dorms and there was no air conditioning and it was summer in Charlotte. No. And so, and a heat wave. But we loved going to eat because in the DC, the dining commons, there was air conditioning.
Right.
So tell me though about that little transition, and how is that, like, that bridge helped you as you moved into Chicago, which again, I'm sure was some culture shock too, because of where you had gone from.
Yeah. And so I had an incredible mom. And little short 5'4" Irish woman, like, she just didn't play. But we had a conversation one time when I was being bullied, and she instilled in me in this conversation great confidence in who I am. And she told me that you have the best of both worlds. You're Black, you're white, and anybody has a problem with it, it's their issue, not yours. They're the ones with the problem, not you. You're fine.
Yeah.
And so that helped me to navigate any space that I walk in. I walk in and people are shocked, surprised. Back in the day, there weren't a lot of biracial children. Back in my day, now everybody is multicultural, biracial, 3 or 4 different mixes. But back in that day, it just allowed me to be able to navigate those spaces with confidence in who I was. And I think that moving to Chicago, which is a very, what's the word I would say? I mean, I hate the word segregated, but you have the Latino community here, and you have the Middle Eastern community here, and you have the Jewish community here, the Black community here, and the Puerto Rican community, Mexican community, like all these different incredible communities that you can go to. They never mix, which is the curse, but the blessing is you can experience all of these cultures. Yeah. And that was just very much who I was, someone who explored different cultures. Yeah. And so working in the Puerto Rican community, I felt at home because I was welcomed and everybody thought I was Puerto Rican. But for me, navigating those spaces is just in my DNA because that's how my mom and dad raised me.
Yeah, it just kind of got natural for you. I love that your mother was so wise to say, it's not your problem. You're not defective. Their thinking is somehow off. They're misguided in theirs. And I am just learning that now at this age.
Right.
I don't have to take on that stuff because you are having a problem. That doesn't make me faulty because of whatever. Right. And that's just amazing wisdom.
Personal issue. My mom was like, it's a personal issue for them. Yeah. It has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, I love that. That's so good. Okay, tell us a little bit, because we're going to kind of navigate through it, but tell us a little bit about the work you do in Chicago. Give us a kind of that 10,000 foot level. What do you do on a day-to-day basis in your community?
Yeah, so I have the incredible privilege of working with young people that are currently incarcerated. And I get to bring into the prison restorative justice programming. And programming that will give them skills so when they come home, they'll have relationships in the community, but they'll also have some things that we've taught them. So we've done everything from barber school to drama to we do peace circles, conflict mediation, art, music, and we're going to be starting podcasting 101 in 2025. And the kids are so excited. They are so excited. And we're hoping to be able to do a podcast from the inside to the outside. But the blessing of just walking life with young people that have found themselves in trouble. I work with young people that are in gangs, in jail, and in prison. And so we bring young people into the prison. I mean, we bring the programming into those that are in prison, not necessarily jail. And man, it is such a blessing to be able to walk life and bring hope into one of the darkest spaces you've ever seen, one of the most depressing environments that is not beneficial for young people. Prison does not work for young people, and that's a whole other podcast. But day to day, I get to do that, and then I get to do a lot of speaking and traveling and training the next generation of leaders. And I mean, God just has me busy, but I love working with young people on the margins. Yeah. Specifically in gangs and in the prison.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. Would you just tell us briefly, what's the difference between jail and prison?
That is a great question.
Something else.
That is a great question. Jail is when young people are picked up and arrested and are brought to wait for their trial. So it's a holding situation until the judge says, okay, you just got 5 to 10 years. Then they send them to prison where they serve out their sentence.
Okay.
And so a lot of times when you're in jail, you might not necessarily move on to the prison phase, which we hope not. We hope for community alternatives to incarceration, house arrest, educational programming, connecting with other communities, organizations. But prison is where we have young people that are going to be there for a few years. They might go to an adult prison when they're done with us. Yeah. And then that gives us a little bit more time to spend with them.
Got it. All right. So jail is kind of the old pre-sentencing, pre-trial.
Exactly. You might go home, you might not. Right.
Okay. Cool.
And then we get the kids when, yes, you have 5 years to serve.
Yeah. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've been working with gang youth, and is there a specific term you would like me to use? Is there one that you're like, hey, this is a good one?
Gang involved youth, or youth that are involved in gang culture.
Okay.
I usually don't say gang members, which there's not anything wrong with that. I just always like to try to identify with the person first.
Yeah.
So I always say youth that are incarcerated, youth that have felony records, not felons. Yeah, I think what you name something or someone really speaks to them as well as to the community. And so with these type of young people, we speak to their humanity first, and then whatever else may be attached to that.
That's good. I love that.
So I appreciate you asking that. I really, really do.
I will try to get it right. I will try to get it right. So because the next question, I literally typed in gang members. So I'm going to try to reverse that and go, hey, what are some misperceptions people have of youth that are involved in gangs? Yes. Tell me a little bit about maybe, if somebody's on the street and we're going like, man, I got to stay out of that neighborhood. Yeah. Maybe that's true, but what are some misperceptions that people just might generally have?
Yeah, absolutely. And the beautiful thing is I go deeper into this in my book as well. I have a whole chapter called What I Learned from Youth or Gang Members or something like that. It's been a while since I looked at the table of contents. But first, they're human. They're teenagers. They're young people. And most of them, probably about 85 to 90% of them are dealing with trauma. A kid is not born wanting to be a gang member unless it's generational. And even then, the kid is like, this may not be the life for me. So they're human first. Some of my favorite people are involved in gangs. Some of the most intelligent, brilliant people that I know are involved in gangs. But some of the most hurt and broken and lost people I know are also involved in gangs, right? And so being able to see them through the lens of God, like, how does God see them? They're his children. So I approach them as they're his children first, right? Yeah. Not all gang members are violent. There is the image that they are, but a lot of kids are just smoking weed and hanging out, listening to music, maybe selling drugs. But a lot of them aren't shooters. A lot of them aren't out there committing murder. That's not what they want to do. That's not their thing. Yeah. And so not every gang member is violent. And another thing that I would say is that they are kind of professional mourners, right? They're constantly losing friends to the streets. And so they lose a friend, they begin the grief process, and then they lose another friend. Then they begin the grief process, then they lose another friend. They just stay in a constant state of grief. And if you've ever had to grieve, can you imagine holding that first stage in your body, in your mind, in your spirit for who knows how long? Years. Yeah. Because you've never been able to grieve. And so that causes a lot of anger, a lot of anxiety, all of those things. So yeah, trauma is huge in the life of a gang involved youth. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, a term that a friend uses is that we need to have a compassionate imagination. And I love that because, there's a lot to unpack around that. But when you led off this conversation by saying they're high school, teenage, early 20s, didn't grow up wanting to be in gangs. Like that was not there. The 3-year-old whatever the person's name is, Joe, did
Right.
not say, hey, I hope to someday be. That wasn't their goal.
No.
And then when I put myself in those shoes and say, oh, I did some pretty numbskull things in my teens and 20s,
Yes, we all did.
but but I was not in an environment where there were gangs around me. And
Right.
so the stuff that I did were connected with the things of the people that were around me, right? Those were the
Yep.
things that I did. The dumb things that I did were part of the culture and environment and city and state and, college and whatever that I was around.
Yeah.
Well, my life, if I had been in a different neighborhood, growing up in a different neighborhood, in a different environment, it's the old who's to say, right? It's
It might
who's
look
to
totally
say.
different.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. And Father Greg Boyle, and I quote him a lot, but he said, I've never seen a hopeful person join a gang.
Right.
Like, let's just start there.
Yeah.
Let's start with the lethal absence of hope in our marginalized, under-resourced communities.
Yeah.
Even in and this doesn't just mean Black and brown neighborhoods. Like, there are white neighborhoods out in the field in the country where there's nothing to do and there's no hope there either. So the 3 kids in that town get together, start a gang, and start getting reckless in their communities, right? But it starts with hope. If you don't have hope, if there's a lethal absence of hope, what you do in the future doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What now is what matters, and I'm going to do whatever I can to feel good, one, or to survive. A lot of these kids join gangs for protection. A lot of these kids, they can't walk through the neighborhood without protection. A lot of kids join gangs to make money because their mom works 2 jobs, their dad is in prison, they have to feed their baby sister because mom's never around, she may be strung out. I mean, all of these reasons that young people join gangs, it's not just I want to have fun, let me join this group. And I think that's one of the misperceptions about gang involved youth, is that they just want to be violent and hang out. No, there are so many reasons why young people join gangs. And these gangs become family to them. What the church should have been.
Come on now.
Right. These gangs have become.
Yeah.
And how do we interrupt that before it gets too far with young people?
Yeah. 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 It's so good. One of the things I am challenged with just in my own thinking and conversations is that there's so much othering that we do because we categorize, right? It's like, okay, so now we have this, homeless population, this unhoused. And I say that there are 30,000 unhoused in Santa Clara County. Well, that's just a number.
Yeah.
And then just some sort of picture in my mind of whatever, the person, under the overpass, the person on the street corner downtown, whatever it is. And that we do the same thing though with gang members. It's just a gang problem. We need a gang task force. We need to be in our communities. And this is not to say that the activities of what happens in gangs is acceptable. No, I'm not saying that at all.
At all.
But
I don't subscribe to that life. I don't. And a lot of people ask me, like, how can you do that, and how can you do, and it's like, I don't agree with the lifestyle, and the kids know it. I want them to be healthy citizens, healthy men and women. And I always tell them, like, if you commit a murder, don't tell me, because I'm gonna tell. Like, I'm not keeping your secrets for you. And so they know those boundaries right from the jump, right? To just know, like, I don't agree with it, but I understand. And I think that's where the love is. I think that's where the hope is. That to have somebody that doesn't agree, but they understand.
Yeah.
That's where compassion comes from.
Yeah. I love that. You opened your book by saying, I'm going to talk a lot about, gangs, incarcerated, all of that, but these are all principles that are really bridge building principles. And you just stated one. I don't have to agree with you, but can we will you try to at least understand me? will you
Exactly.
try to at least ask me a question that would go deeper to, oh my goodness, your dad died, your mother, and whatever the story is, right? Where
Right,
now
right.
you become real. Now, well, I don't like the choices you're making, but I at least have an understanding of how you got where you are today.
Yes. And people just want to be heard and they want to be
Oh, yeah.
seen.
Yes.
And
Yes.
those on the margins usually aren't. Like you say, we'll drive down the street and see an unhoused person and just create a story in our head,
Yeah.
right? Make some judgments, not give them the dollar because they have a beer can, and then keep moving.
Yeah.
And we don't know their story.
Right.
We know nothing about them. Just like nobody knows anything about the gang involved youth or those that are incarcerated. Y'all don't know nothing about my boys or my babies, like I call them my babies, but will steady make judgments.
Mm.
And even the ones that don't make judgments, they will look upon them like they're projects and let me go fix them. And that's a whole other issue that the church
Yes.
has.
Right. Let's dig into a few things you've just brought up.
I love your facial expressions.
I feel like every 4 sentences, I'm like, wait, there's another question. I can't get to all of them today. Oh my goodness. All right.
You just have to have me back.
Yes, let's do this. Tell me about seeing somebody. It is so important. I mean, it's not just this. The Avatar movie you're seeing. That was big about this time last year. I think that's when Avatar 2 came out. But what do you see when you're talking to your boys, your babies, when you're talking to them and they start feeling seen? Would you tell us a little bit about kind of what you see in them as they realize that this person is actually paying attention to me now?
I mean, the posture changes. They sit up a little straighter. They're smiling. They're feeling warm and they don't understand that feeling and what's happening to me and why is this person loving me and not knowing me. And I'm one of those people that make it a point that when a young person walks in the room, I know their name and I'm excited to see them so that they know, wow, somebody wants to see me. Someone's not judging me. And inside the prison, we're not supposed to give hugs, but I give hugs. Cause I'm Auntie Amy, I'm Mama Amy, whatever you want to call me, big sis. But there's just something about a young person whose society continually tells in every form, in media, on the streets, the COs, the teachers, the parents, all adult figures telling these young people, you're nothing but trouble, you've caused problems, you have no worth or value, you're just taking up space, to be the person that that is countercultural to that. That's what the church is called to be.
Yeah.
We're called to be hope and light. And so that's why I wear a big sweatshirt hoodie that says hope on it, that they can see if they're walking down the hallway. They see the hope. That's what we're called to be. And so that's my mission that I take into the prison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like you and I at least grew up in a home where we had parents that were affirming of us, positive, tell us, and I probably have too high of a regard of myself because of what my parents in Sesame Street told me, right? So
I get that. I totally get that.
But to contrast that with just hearing the opposite and that being the narrative that describes who you are.
Yeah.
I mean,
and it's a process because the kids here are what's the word I'm looking for?
Barrage?
Berated.
Yes.
Barrage with just negativity all the time. So one, God loves you. That don't mean that ain't gonna do nothing. It has to be I mean, it might do something. Let me take that back, Lord, because you can do anything. But they need consistency in that. Yeah. Which is what we have a lot of problems with when our young people are inside. They have the love, they have the hope, and then they go home, back to the environment, back to their home, where, their father is drinking and is telling them you ain't worth nothing. Mentorship is everything, and creating safe spaces and constantly letting people know you got this, you got this, you can do this, you can do this. It has to be a consistency to it, though, or it just falls on deaf ears.
Yeah.
You'll tell somebody you're great, and they'll be like, yeah, whatever. But if after the millionth time that you're like, you really got talent,
yeah,
you really are good at this, then they start to believe it, right? The more they hear it.
Yeah.
So it's about consistency with these young people.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, just a ton of more questions. So let's go down this path. What do you do when you're working with a youth and you find out that they're just kind of going back into the old lifestyle? Would you talk a little bit about maybe your own emotional response to that, kind of how you navigate that? Because it seems like the world you're working in, you're going to have successes and I suppose in our own lives, have never been up and to the right constantly. There's always, hills and valleys, right?
Yeah.
So what does that look like when you're working with somebody and they kind of start going back to stuff again, or you lose track of them, some of those things?
Personally, I try not to take it personally. I try not to be the one who's like, oh, if I could have just done more. Oh, if I had just done this. Oh, if I had, right? If I did that, I would have been done with this work a long time ago. I've gotten to the point where I make it God's problem.
There you go.
God, this is on you. Use me. I'm here, but if you don't do it, it's not going to get done. I am a supporting actor in a kid's life. They're the lead role, right? And so realizing what my role is, what God's role is, and what the young person's role is, and never confusing any of that. Yeah. It does hurt sometimes. It does hurt. We have a young person who we had mentored on the inside, came home, doing great for 9 months, and just recently got caught with a gun. And now he's back in prison, in an adult prison. So he's not back with us in the juvenile. He's now in an adult case. And I went to go visit him. When I went in to go visit him, he put his head down when he saw me. And I sat down and I said, you better lift your head up. I'm not here to tell you what you did was wrong. You're hearing that from everybody. I didn't come here for that. Mm-hmm. I came here to let you know you're not alone. I love you. We're going to work through this. I'm not going to abandon you in this process. We're connected. So I'm going to rock with you through this whole thing. And I think that young people, when we work with young people, we have to know that they're going to let us down and we're going to make stupid decisions, and we're going to let the kids down. Like, we're in this together, but I had to release the responsibility of making sure every kid did what I thought was the right thing. In my book, I talk a little bit about how I'm the recovering member of the Trinity, the fourth member of the Trinity, right. That God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit didn't need me to do nothing.
Weird. Right?
But I have great ideas, God, So having to, step back from that and just let God be God, guide me, and spend a whole lot of time praying for them and for myself. And for my own healing in the process.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
And that's a word for parents with kids who aren't on the path anymore.
Absolutely.
That's word for you who has decided that, you got sober and you're back drinking again, or whatever it was.
Absolutely.
Right? Like the story, that's that story of God showing up. And I've spent a lot of time thinking God was like a grumpy old God with his arms crossed, this one, and that, like, I'm just disappointed with you, son, kind of look.
Yeah.
When I don't think God is. I mean, I'm going to let God down the moment I think that everything I do is going to make God happy somehow.
Right.
I think I've lost sight of my ability, one, to affect the emotions of God, But two, he's well aware that my life is going to be up and down. I'm going to make
Yeah.
decisions for and against. And as humans, we want to see everything always, just up and to the right. And the fact is that's not anybody's story that I've ever met. So maybe that
Yeah.
person's out there, but it's not a story that I've ever met.
Like I have staff who take a lot of things personally so the young person I was just talking to, the staff that was mentoring him really just kind of went in this sort of dark place for a while. And I had to pull him out of that because he just thought he didn't do enough. And it's one of those things that it's like, I turned it on him and I'm like, what is it inside of you that still needs healing, that cannot let this go?
Mm-hmm.
What is it? We all have a need to be needed, but what lie was told to you that this kid's success meant your success? Like, what lie was told to you? So what healing do you need to do on the inside in order to let this, I mean, he wouldn't go visit the kid. And I was like, see, that's something in you.
Yeah.
That ain't got nothing to do with this kid. That kid needs you.
Yeah.
Why can't you go see him? Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
And help you to move forward. So
Yeah.
a lot of that stuff is our mess,
Mm-hmm.
not the young people that we serve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's absolutely right. Let's talk about people are not a project. Let's go with that subject right now.
Yes.
As with many things, we've already talked about a few subjects out there, but we turn whole populations into a program, a project, into something. Where's the fallacy in this? Tell us why, people are not a project. Where are we going wrong?
I mean, the church is really good at this. And the minute that someone becomes saved, and I was just repenting about how I used to be holier than thou, and I was the one that was like, I'm better than you, and I have all the answers and solutions. And I repent for the people that I hurt in the process of me thinking that I could fix them if they just came to Jesus. I can't fix myself, let alone another individual. But we just have this stance of, we know better, we are better, right? And you need to come up to our level. So what we're going to do is we're going to reach down, pull you up, and fix you. And I mean, just me saying that, if you don't know what the issue is with everything that I just said, then that might be you right now. Right. And I have a really good quote that I don't have it right in front of me, but it just talks about how difficult it is to develop community when you're the doctor and the people that we're serving are patients. Because that means that I always have to be well and you always have to be sick in order for our relationship to work. But the real job of the church is for all of us to be healthy.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm going to be sick and I'm going to need help. But the people that we serve are not projects that we just go to and fix. We are in this together. It's not they and them. It's we and us.
There you go.
And we need to get to that place where we understand that.
Yeah.
And stop with the othering and stop with the them over there. They need Jesus. I need Jesus. I've known Jesus for a long time now, and I still desperately need him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we just need to stop with that.
So how do we get over that? Because I mean, maybe not so much the I'm going to reach down and pull you up. That's definitely a problem. I mean, a challenge, right? Because it's like, well, I see you're in poverty. Let me see if I can give you things so you're out of poverty, or, whatever the mindset is around the particular issue that gets you.
Yeah.
But there are kind of goals. And whenever you have a goal, there is a project. And even if that goal is like, my goal is that you do this on your own time, but we're definitely aiming in a direction. So I totally get what you're saying, but I can also easily fall back into okay, but we have some stuff to accomplish here. So let's get after it. And that becomes a project for me. So how do I catch myself, fix myself? Like, what's the,
Two things. It's the way you see people, and it's the way that you include people. Let people be included in the decisions that will affect their own life and livelihood. If you're doing an unhoused, I mean, because we are at Thanksgiving, well, a lot of people are giving out turkeys and they'll check it off their list like we just did something for the community. And the truth is, a turkey will get you through a meal or two.
Right.
But how have you empowered them to be able to feed their families for a while? So if you're going to do that, have people at the table that are part of that community.
There you go.
Develop community with them, and let them come up with their own answers and solutions. And what you can do is say, oh, well, I have a resource for that. Oh, I didn't know that was a need you had. Guess who I know that can help you with that? Instead of going to someone and being like, you need this and you need that and and I'm going to get it for you. I remember I was speaking at an event around mass incarceration, and I was going to be on the panel, and I was like, who on the panel has been formerly incarcerated? And she was like, huh? And she was like, no one. And I'm like, we have to stop talking about it. We have to start and talking to it, but include those that are impacted by it. And so the people that are the closest to the problem are the ones that have the solution. I'm like, y'all want to stop gun violence with teenagers? Where are the teenagers at? Why aren't we talking to them? They'll let us know what they need to stop picking up guns. They'll let us know why aren't they at the conversation? So the way to stop making people projects is to have that community involved in whatever it is that you're doing. Let them tell you what the solutions are to their problems.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm sure the pushback is, well, obviously they're part of the problem. How can they have the solution? At the same time, they know what the problem is and they know how they're doing it. And so if that's something you don't want to do anymore.
You have to change your mind around that.
Right.
You have to change the way that you think about those things, right? Instead of saying they're part of the problem, it's like Oprah had said one time. She had said, or she got a quote from somebody, said something like, instead of asking what's wrong with you, ask what happened to you. They're part of the problem because something happened to them at a young age.
Yeah.
Kids don't walk around just picking up guns for no reason.
Yeah.
What happened to you in your life? How did you grow up? What impacted your brain development? What, we have to start asking questions and listening to the stories.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I really appreciate about that is that we often, and we by being people in power, people in position, people with money, people with influence, whatever race or ethnicity that happens to be, but people in that place, we tend to also think that we're the ones with the answers because we figured some stuff out.
Yeah,
we got to where we are by figuring things out.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the challenges is, how do we come to the table open-handedly? This is something that I love to talk about at Live Faith First. Just like we got to come in open-handedly. What that means is you have ideas, you have plans, you have things, you have opinions, and those are great.
Yeah.
But you may not be the holder of 100% of the truth around a particular subject, something, whatever it is, right? So let's come in open-handed. And then, so I'm not coming in with a plan. I'm coming in to hear what you're going through and asking you that question. Well, okay, so there's whatever the problem is, challenge is.
Yeah.
How would you solve it? And I think the nice thing, one of the great things about having people of influence and so on at the table is that they do know where the resources are. Right. So it's not that our time and effort is wasted. And I do say unfortunately, not or fortunately, actually, I think fortunately, I'm a person that does have a little bit of influence and a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So when I come to a table, though, I know somebody who can help with that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I see you, I see your problem, and you're hopeless to fix it. And I'm not saying I can fix it, but I at least say, well, we have a step number 2. Like let's now go
Exactly.
to this step and see what happens.
Exactly. And I believe God has created us, some of us, to really be connectors of people.
Yes.
Right? Like, I want to know everybody I can. What do you do? What resources do you have? So when my young person is like, Amy, I've always wanted to go to a studio and record music. Oh, well, I know 3 guys. Let me, Amy, I've always wondered what college was like. Oh, well, I got somebody who can give you a tour. Let me,
Yeah. Right.
Amy, I need food. Oh, well, I know 3 food banks and we got a gift certificate to Jewel, this person, so it's about being a connector.
Yeah.
And it's not always about giving either, right? Like giving, I never do for a young person what they can do for themselves, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so if a kid is like, I need a job, I'll be like, well, let me teach you how to fill out an application.
Right.
Well, they didn't call me back. Well, did you call them? No.
Right.
Okay, well, here's my phone. I'll sit here with you as you talk to them, put them on speaker, and I'll help you walk through the process. Yeah. Right. So a lot of times, like I said, Thanksgiving's coming up. We'll give a turkey check. We did a turkey drive, and then we don't do anything again.
Right.
Until Christmas.
Right.
We have to change that.
Yeah.
Because people in the community notice those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the question is, if your church were to shut down right now, right, would the community feel it?
Yeah.
Would they know it? And I
right.
think that's something to sit with and ponder.
Yeah. And I want to get back to that in a minute, because there's so much to unpack around that subject.
Yeah.
I do want to go back to being a connector, though, and how important that is. If you grew up with every door you tried to open getting slammed in your face because the color of your skin, the tattoos on your face, the age, whatever it is, the neighborhood you grew up in, any of those things, having somebody to open a door. Now, you still got to walk through the door. You still got to go in. You still got to make the call. You still got to, but you know what? I can't open the door for you.
Absolutely.
I can open the door for you, and I will make sure this person won't slam it in your face. I didn't say they're going to give you a job.
Right.
I didn't say they're going to, that's not what I'm saying, but you will be given a fair opportunity with a door open so that you can go be the person God's created you to be. Right.
Exactly.
And so I think there's so much to be in that kind of that resource, that connector in a community. And so I love that place, that concept that, hey, how do we make sure we're helping people see another,
expanding their worldview.
Yes.
That's a big thing for me with these young people, expanding their worldview. Let them then see things and meet people that they never normally would if it weren't for God connecting us.
Yeah. Right.
Right. And so use that gift of connecting, build community around that, build relationships with people that you normally wouldn't, and let them connect them with your resources.
Yeah. Yeah.
It could change communities.
Right. Right. Change a life, change a community.
Exactly.
All of the things that we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just a story that's rattling around in my head, and there's a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, he's 15 now, but we were all talking. It was a group of us around, and one of us said something about, hey, are you, what college are you going to go to? Are you going to go to college where, this or that or the other? And he kind of got a smile on his face as he started thinking about it. Again, this is like 7th, 8th grade, right? Mm-hmm. And another person was there. I was like, you don't have to go to college. You can do something else. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, my wife and I, we got home and we're like, we are going to back that train up. I'm not going to cause trouble in that group right there, but we will have another conversation that says, you don't have to go to college.
Right.
But if you can go to college, you're going. And then just maybe a month or two ago, he was in the car with his mom and said, Mom, I think I want to go to UC Berkeley. And and then she of course tells us, and we're like, okay,
Yes.
and we'll see. He's a freshman. We will see where it lands. But it's that idea of, we have been purposefully planting seeds of, hey, what are you going to do past high school? Let's not lose sight of the fact that after 18, there can be more.
Yeah.
Even though, in his family, there hasn't been a lot of education beyond that. So anyway, all that to say,
planting that hope. Yeah.
Right. That there's,
and support.
Yes.
It wasn't just a thing you said, but it was a constant consistency of, I see you and you can do this.
Yeah.
That gave that young person that confidence himself.
Yeah. Yeah. So
beautiful.
We'll see where he lands. He's got a few years to get there, but I do feel good that it will be in college, Lord willing, right?
I love it.
Okay. So this is one when my wife and I started dating 25 years ago now. I cannot believe it's been 25 years. It's just more than that.
Congratulations.
Yesterday, my wife celebrated her 25th anniversary of her baptism, her adult baptism, I will say. And so super cool to see that in her life today. And I was not a pastor at the time, but pastor asked me to baptize her.
Really?
And so it was because she was
love.
Right. Yes. That was already happening. And that's why I was like, Pastor, I'm not sure that I should be baptizing my girlfriend. I'm not sure this is okay.
That's
so anyway.
Beautiful.
But one of the things that my wise wife told me way back when was like, I've given up trying to change people. I can't change you. I can't make you do something you don't want to do. I can be ready when you're ready for change, but no matter of yelling, screaming, forcing, manipulating, crying can make you change. So what does that look like? Do you ever feel helpless when you're watching people and it's like, man, I see what you're capable of, but you have to go grab it?
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning, totally felt helpless. But I'm in that place of, if God doesn't do it, it won't get done. Mm-hmm. And as long as that young person knows when they are ready, I know who I can go to.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so when you're not ready, I'm gonna rock with you. And when you are ready, I'm gonna rock with you that way too. Yeah. And so just knowing and being a constant person, a constant space for that person when they're ready, then I'm here. And until then, I'm just going to pray for you and love you. Yeah. But you're the hero of your own life. I'm just a supporting actress.
Yeah.
You're the hero. Yeah. And so, a lot of times with gang involved youth, I see the destruction it causes. And I've buried, I'm in double digits of how many young people I have buried to the gang life, to the street, to gun culture, who had potential, who had everything ahead of them, but they just could not let go of the life and lost their lives for it. That's when I feel helpless. Yeah. Yeah. But as long as they know that they were loved, they were not alone, and there was a God that loved them, then I feel a little easier. Yeah. But it's still like, it's just a hard place to be. And so I have to you have to know Jesus to do this work. Yeah. Like, you got to be at the foot of the cross often. I mean, I was in the car going to a meeting today, and I just in tears, just being overwhelmed with all of the stuff my young people are going through. And it's the holidays. They're locked up and away from their families, and they feel that. They get agitated. They get emotional. So their emotions are shown through anger. So there's more fights in the prison. There's more disrespect. I mean, trying to be hope and love for these kids during the season, it's just, it can be a lot. It can be a lot. Yeah. You got to stay at the foot of the cross. Yeah. No way. No other way to do this. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's, I was looking at your website and just kind of you have a page there of just people, pictures, and I'm looking at the faces, and they're just that they're kids,
Their
They're
kids.
kids. And,
We had
okay, I'm in
so
my
much
50s
story
now.
left
So
to write.
anybody under whatever is a kid, but I'm still looking. And you look and you just see hope. You see potential. You just see
Yeah,
so much there that was
yeah,
just cut short.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
you can go down the well. They chose that. Well, okay, they did choose that. But again, there
Do you know
is
why they chose that?
right. What's behind that? What
What's
was the
behind
cause?
all of
Right.
that?
Right.
Yeah,
And so it
because a
is.
lot of times they're screaming for help when
Yeah.
they're involved in that gang culture.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they want to be rescued. Most of them out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do want to switch back over to our churches again
yeah,
because it's. I really like to think, and I do believe that churches do go out with great intentions.
absolutely.
Nobody's going out trying to do harm. Nobody's
Right.
going out trying to make a negative impact in a community.
Yeah,
Even if I might go, oh, I don't know that I agree with your tactic there, but
yeah. The intent
so
is everything. Yeah.
and yet, would you talk a little bit about what it looks like when a church kind of comes in and does their one-off Easter event, and they put on this big show, and then they don't show up again, and kind of what's the perception on the in the neighborhood
Yeah.
when that happens? What do people say about that?
Yeah. Tell a story of a gang leader. He's our age. He's 54. And, I asked him about that. One time there was a church blocked off the streets and had the bouncy houses and the food and the DJ and the basketball hoops. And we're just sitting there. And it was just kind of like, what do you think of this? Right? Because I expect those that are involved in gang culture to teach me. Because I've never been in a gang before, right? My brother was. My brother was gang involved, but I've never been in a gang before. And I asked him, "What do you think of this?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's nice. You come into our neighborhoods, we'll eat your hot dogs and we'll listen to the music and we'll do your bouncy house things, but it really doesn't matter because we know we won't see you again until next year." So there's this thing of it's nice,
Yeah,
it's cute, we'll participate, but that doesn't build community.
yeah,
That is a project.
yeah, yeah.
That is another project, street outreach. Well, if we call it street outreach, and I'm not saying, now hear me when I say, I'm not saying God can't do an amazing thing there.
Sure,
There may
absolutely.
be somebody there that desperately needs prayer and it changes their life and whatever, right? Like that can happen. If you're trying to build community, that's not the way to happen. A community event needs to turn into a community year-long presence.
There you go. Yes.
That block party should be an introduction of this church in this community that we want to get to know and continue to serve.
Yeah.
And how do you do that? You meet the neighbors and you invite the neighbors to the table and say, how can we serve this community? Would you like to be a part of our community? How can we blend our communities together and impact the lives of this particular community? What does that look like? Is it more unhoused in this community? Are there more youth in this community? I mean, are there a lot of sex workers in this community? What can we do and how can we reach those populations by building communities? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what I would say about that, because that's what the gang leader told me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think what's so important, so many things I'd like to add to that. One of that, not add to it, but like pull
Yeah.
out, is that we often as a church think that we do best with events, and churches do pull off events well. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
that is like
Yeah.
the church that I pastored 17 years, we were really good at events, and they
Yeah.
were great events. And so, but just to go back to resources again, the church that I pastored at for 17 years, there's a lot of things that we didn't have the resources for.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we don't have drug addiction. We don't have, whatever it is. Like there's a lot of things, but that doesn't mean, again, to be a connector, that we can't go, church ABC don't have to be the solution here. What I have to be is a connector to, I know this nonprofit. Can I
Yes.
invite you all together? We all sit at the same table. Let's
Yes.
talk about what resources we have. And I think that nonprofit church connection has just it's never come together the way it should. We're always kind of in our silos of like church does
Right.
church and nonprofit does nonprofit, and we don't know how to play in the same play. We're in the same playground. We just haven't, and we're friends, but we haven't quite figured out how to be partners. And
Right.
so when we're having these conversations, when we're inviting people to the table that live in the community, that know the community, that can tell you, we have youth, we have drug addiction, we have whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Church ABC, I don't have to have a program
Nope.
for sex workers. I don't have to have that
Nope.
program. And I don't ever have to, unless that's your calling.
Right.
But there are great organizations that are working in that space
Mm-hmm.
that if we can bring everybody to the table, now we're making impact. One other fallacy, and I'm sorry, I'm piggybacking on you here, but this is
Yeah.
another one, is that it's often, I feel like churches think it's going to take 200 people to show up in order to have an amazing outreach. And I'm finding if you have 1 to 3 dedicated people who begin to know somebody in the community,
Yes.
now you're starting to make a difference. And that doesn't mean you won't have the big event
Right.
where you're going to call in everybody from the church. Hey, can we get 100 people here this Saturday?
Right.
But the day-to-day building relationship, meeting people, being kind of that liaison, it doesn't take, and it doesn't even have to be the lead pastor.
No,
The
at
lead
all.
pastor
I
can
mean,
actually
there was a church member of this one church in my community on my block, and every day he would stand outside for 2 to 3 hours with a cup of coffee and would just talk to any and everybody that walked by. He wouldn't, grab them and say, let's have a conversation. How you doing? How's your day? Every car that passed by. And he did it like every day, every week for like 2 or 3 times a week. And the kids knew him.
Yeah.
Families knew him. And they knew, oh, Mr. So-and-so on the corner, if we need something, we can just go, ask him because he works at that church.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I'm a big believer of the connector. What I can add on top of being the connector is sometimes the church is the one that has to get it started.
Yes.
Don't wait for someone in the community to come to the church and be like, we need your help. You should have a pulse on what's happening in your community. Yeah. You should be attending community events. You should be going to when the police have their monthly meeting about crime in your area. You should be going to those.
Yeah.
You need to be part of the community events that are going on so you have a pulse on what's going on, and then say, oh, well, me and this nonprofit, we're partnering. How can we, so yeah. Connect.
Yeah.
There's so much power in that.
I always think I can just do it by myself.
Well,
right?
and I would rather do it by myself, but it just won't be good.
It will not be good.
It won't have the impact that it could have.
Yeah, and Amy, I'm like you. I also think I have all the answers, and I'm amazed at God. I
saw you at a meeting. I think I saw you at a recovery meeting. Yeah,
right.
Fourth member of the Trinity. I have a lot of friends there.
God hasn't been hitting me up as much lately, asking my opinion. It's kind of weird. I don't know. I don't know what he's doing here. So, no, this has been so good. But I do have one final question for you.
Yes.
Close off our podcast with this. What is exciting you right now? It could be a Bible verse. It could be something happening in your ministry, just something happening in your life that you're like, every time I think about this, it just makes me smile. Maybe you're looking forward to Thanksgiving dinner. I don't know. We're going to release this in January. We're recording this pre-Thanksgiving. So what's something that's exciting you right now?
I have to tell you, holidays are hard for me. I just recently lost my dad. And 5 months after that, I lost my best friend of 31 years. And they both passed to cancer. My dad's birthday's on Christmas. He passed away in December. And my 7-year-old niece also was killed in a car accident in December. So holidays are really, really hard. And I'm really trying to find the joy. And what brings me joy is my 9-year-old niece in San Diego. I'm going to spend the holidays with her. It's my brother's daughter. and we FaceTime every day. And when things just get heavy, when things are hard, when things are emotional, she centers me. She
Yeah.
brings me back to what's important, what matters, and being around someone who loves everything about me. There's nothing I can go do wrong. I need that too. I need that love and that support. And she doesn't even know that she's doing it. But that is what brings me joy, my
Yeah.
Samantha.
I love that. That is so good. That is
Yeah.
so good. The church I worked at for 17 years had a school. And so when our daughter was in preschool and elementary, she went there. And there were days where, like, I know when lunch is, and I
Yeah.
just go down and I get a hug.
Yep.
And whatever happened that morning, it was all better now. It didn't go away. But
Yeah.
like you say, it centers us. It puts us back in this, like, things are going to work out. It's weird how it resets our perspective. So that is amazing. I am so excited for you to come out to California. I guess you're going to leave the cold and windy Chicago.
I
And
am, but I love cold and windy. So I love
okay.
Chicago winters. I know there aren't many of us, but I cannot wait for the snow.
I don't know that I've ever heard anybody say that. So that is awesome. That is
Born and raised
awesome.
in
Well, you're in the right
Maine,
place. Yeah.
snow, cold weather. I love it. I love it.
Put your sweaters on, your jackets
That's
on,
right.
your
My
beanie
hoodies.
on. Let's go.
Woo.
Right? Yeah.
Yes, let's
That is so
go.
good. So, Amy Hope Dealer Williams, thank you so much for joining the Live Faith First Project
It's been
podcast.
great.
I've really enjoyed our conversation today. And for everybody else out there, hey, let's go live faith first.